you're actually challenging me. Like I'm hearing some things you said. We can talk off record,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're challenging me about how I'm handling some situations, and I appreciate it.
All right. Well, Jojo Talkin, thanks you, thank you so much for joining me for. I cannot talk. I'm going to start that over.
All right.
That's the first time it's ever happened to me before. Jojo Talkin, thank you so much for joining me on Growing Up Fundie. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because I think your story is very, very interesting. It's very unique. And I think people need to hear stories like yours because a lot of people might think they're alone in their experiences when they have odd or off the wall experiences. But then people like you come through and you share them on podcasts like this. And I really think people are going to enjoy your story. But before we dive in, I would love to read what you said to me in one of your first messages. You said, "You're a very woke, older than me human with a lot to say." And I just thought that was a really great way to describe yourself. But enough from me. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Joanne officially, but I go by Jojo. I grew up in West Michigan on a very, I can't say the word rural farm. I grew up Catholic, and then I went to college in Ohio, and I spent most of my life in Ohio, also very rural until recently. Um, I married. I married young, and was married for 29 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm now single. Not necessarily loving it, but I'm content. Yeah, there you go.
Ready to mingle.
I'm content. So, but along the journey, I've just experienced so many things that I'd love to share with you.
Yeah, yeah. And I loved when you first reached out to me because I felt like your personality was just I felt like I knew what you were gonna be like before I even met you just through reading your words. But
Thank you.
and it's also interesting to me because it sounds like you've been through quite a lot. And to then turn around and have this bubbly personality, this outgoing personality, you seem very positive and upbeat. It's so interesting to read your backstory and then meet you at those two people just you wouldn't expect.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I do try to be positive. I was a collegiate athlete, and from the biggest thing I gained from that was tenacity. I come back. I come back alive. I come back,
Yeah.
and I come back more verbal.
Yeah. What sport?
Cross country and track.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That takes
Thank you.
spunk. Um
Thank you. I was
s-
pretty good. I still hold one record, I think, at the school, at BGSU. And what else? Yeah, and that was like 1986. So I'm way older.
wow.
Yeah, 1986 I graduated. So yeah, and I also have set a world record in
What
a
for?
it's called an elliptigo. If you get a chance to, it's a stand-up bicycle.
Okay.
In 2011, I worked at a bike shop. I was coming off of my volunteer mothering phase. My husband actually said, "Could you get paid for your volunteer work?" Which was kind of funny, but
It's like that's the opposite of volunteer.
right, like, okay, I'll start working. So I started working at a bike shop, but someone introduced me to the stand-up bicycle, and I used to run. I couldn't because I had 5 children. I didn't mention that. I have 5 beautiful, lovely children, um, and they're grown adults, 22 to 35. Um, So anyway, I rode this bike, and I would people say, "Well, how far can you ride?" Like, I don't know. So I tried riding it, and I found out there was a record. It was about 5 years new product, and I thought, okay, I'll beat the record. So I rode 110 miles, set the world in one day.
What?
5 days later, um, J- Jenny Hatfield broke my record. She rode 152 something. I'm like, shoot. Well, then my coworker said, "Well, you just started training, girl." Like, oh yeah. So I said it twice.
What? So you went back and then you beat the beaten score?
Yeah,
That's wild. It's
I
not
went.
JoJo talking, it's JoJo biking.
I
That's
know.
what it should be.
tenacity
That's awesome.
definitely in my blood.
So there's even it turns out there's even more to your story than I originally
Yes.
thought. So
Yeah,
there's even more. I feel like we're gonna have to schedule a part 2 already, just because there's
I
gonna
love
be
it. I'd love to.
so many stories. Now, how does someone go from being a devout Catholic to an evangelical Christian involved in IBLP? How does that happen?
Yes. So that's a good story. So I grew up Catholic. My mom was going to be a nun back in the day. Yeah, and
Glad she didn't.
right, she still devoted her life to God in that she had 8 kids. So, and it's a
Wow.
wild story that I might write a book about someday, about my mother's journey, because it was wild. But anyway, she never got to write her story fully. Um, and But so she didn't go into the convent. So I was a Catholic. I revered my mother. I revered God. And at one point, I thought I might be a nun. I'm kind of nunning right now.
I mean, I guess it's never too late, is it? I don't know. I'm not
I don't
Catholic.
know. No, no, I don't want to stay a nun, honestly, but that's okay. Um, so in college, I was a runner, and then I encountered an injury, and went from being top dog. I was a 2-time Mid American Conference champion, 2-time Ohio champion, NCAA qualifier, to an
Jeez.
injured player, and I don't take failure very well. I'm pretty as high as I go. I also get disappointed with myself, So I
Same. Yeah.
fell pretty hard, but in that time, I had a lot of people that were talking to me about Jesus. There was a guy that came on campus called Brother Jed. You should study him if you're interested. But he was quite the guy. He had carried a cross, and his wife would openly breastfeed out but he'd get in a circle and he'd say, "You're a whoremonger and you're going to hell." And he got a lot of us talking. Yeah, he was incredible.
But his wife was the one popping her chest out in front of
I
people,
know,
right?
well, that was okay because it was, I don't know. Yeah, I know, a lot of hypocrisy
Yeah.
with my people. But so what I ended up doing is, in my running had become everything to me, and so much so that I kind of forgot about my relationship with God. So during that time, these people really helped me to see that the wording is, and I believe it. I'm still a Christian. I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior when I was 20 years old. Actually, I was 1983. So then I met my husband, and
What did your parents have a problem with that
oh,
since
they
they
had
were
big. My mother was grief stricken. She had 8 kids, and only one is still Catholic.
really?
Yes.
And was that like, did that cause problems, or did they just kind of let you do your thing after
Um,
speaking their piece about it?
I tried to be. It was hard. It was one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, was to tell my mom I got baptized. Again, like you're, to her I was a Christian again. I wasn't,
Yeah,
and it was really hard.
I bet.
Yeah. So I was like the sixth to go.
Wow.
My older siblings were not quite so respectful. I hope they don't listen to this, but I don't care. Um, they 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 did the "you're going to hell" thing, and you're not a Christian, and I knew not to disrespect my parents, so I tried to be respectful. But it
Oh,
was,
they said that to your mom?
yes, my mom and dad.
Oh,
Yes, it was not a good story.
that's awful. I thought you meant they said that to you because you were leaving the Catholic Church, and I thought, well, that's
No,
ironic because they left too.
no.
Oh,
They said that to my mother. So, like, don't do what your siblings did.
wow.
Yeah, and so I was a very committed Christian. I worked at a Christian school here in Toledo area. Um, it's still I cannot work there right now because I looked at their values, and I can't agree with them because
Right.
they don't want any LGBTQ people there. Like, they just, anyway, I won't go into
And
that.
you're a Christian too. Like, for anybody listening, you didn't leave Christianity. You're still a Christian, right?
No, I did go through a very tumultuous journey, which we may
Yeah.
not get to, but I'm still
Yeah.
Christian, and I recommitted my life to God. about a
Yeah.
year ago. And
Okay.
it's a wild story.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that deconstruction means you leave Christianity, but what it actually means is it means you're leaving a form of belief that you had before and moving on to a different type of belief. And a lot of times you can deconstruct from one type of Christian to another type of Christian.
Well, and I've had a really rough go, though, trying to find my people now. Like,
Yeah.
the way I would say it is, I'm having better luck. Like, I did in high school, I did date a gentleman that was Black. But my town was extremely white, and everywhere I've lived has been small town and very, very white. So I moved to Toledo, Lucas County on purpose because I want to be more diverse. Like,
Yeah.
I want to open my brain to more thinking. So anyway, back to Christianity in my journey. I became a Christian. I got married. I followed very strict birth control protocol, which we can go into if you want, but had 5 kids of my own with my husband. We were like the cream of the crop. I had one guy say, I can't believe you guys got divorced because you were like the perfect couple. And what happened was the Bill Gothard stuff, which
Yeah.
a lot of your listeners probably know about.
Yes.
We were not top dog or anything. We attended it, and I conformed to the umbrella, which is the for your listeners who don't know, God first, and then Jesus, and then the husband, and then you, and then the kids. I forget the order, but I was trying to be very submissive,
Mhm.
and I did pretty good for about 35 years.
I
Or
was going to say that's surprising because just
20,
in talking to you,
20,
you just don't seem like a submissive person.
I know. Well, I can be compliant. Like, I was Catholic, the Catholic, but yeah. So I ended up thinking for myself. I was trying to heal from some past abuses, and so I was going to counseling, and the marriage wasn't going great because I wasn't content, and I come to realize that he wasn't either. But he didn't believe in divorce, and he didn't believe in murder. What do you got left? Gaslight. So that's what happened there. Is
Oh.
he was trying to comply with the church's men are in charge, they're the bosses, and in his defense, he was following the church's. We followed to a T, but it just didn't work. It didn't work because in my healing process, I'm like, I have a voice. Can I use it? There was a point, I don't know if I told you this, probably 6 years in a row, he would hand me his voting card. He'd like, this is how I voted. He wouldn't tell me to vote.
Oh, I
But I
see.
voted, like, I was too busy, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen. I just voted what he did.
Yeah.
I started with, what's a platform? What does that mean? And I started thinking for myself. I started asking questions.
That's no good.
I know, right? And then I started like standing up for women and like the abuses. And I mean, I don't know where I'll just say my church. I don't know where my church stood on abuses because I was not privy to abuses in my particular church where we sent our children.
Right.
But it was very misogynistic.
Yeah. And when you say abuses, do you mean like spousal, like domestic
I
abuse?
meant sexual.
Oh, got it. Got it.
Yeah, there was definitely some sexual abuse in my past. I don't want to go into that.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of good Christians have that in their past, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's become a literal statistic, which is the sad part, which
Yes.
is unfortunate.
Yes.
So did you when you were married and you guys were having these problems, did any of it like would you attribute any of it to your changes in beliefs? Like did he want to stay in IBLP, very strict Christianity, and you wanted to be in a different type of Christianity, or were you guys just growing apart in general?
I didn't really recognize my changes as spiritual at the time. I actually was, so I was succeeding, and I don't think he liked that. Like, women are supposed to be submissive. And, he's the one that knows everything in the Bible, not me. And
Yeah.
the church really encouraged that the submissive and the women are quiet. We weren't supposed to preach, and they
Right.
didn't even women preaching. So,
Right.
but I was working with this gentleman. He was writing a book. He was a pastor, and I was writing in his blogs, and it was quite successful. And I was like,
Which I'm surprised by,
I
because you'd think
know.
that wouldn't be allowed.
Well, this was not my church. It was a
Got it.
different, yeah.
Got it.
And they were okay with it. Good people, actually. He ended up being the pastor that married my son and his wife.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So he wrote his book, he published his book, but your listeners that are Christians will know this. I was studying the book of James. In the
Yes.
book of James, I think it was chapter 2, I'd have to look, but the part where and you fall into sin, like
Yes.
that part, the last time I read my Bible was,
Wow.
yeah, it was like, and you get captured by your sin will take you away. And it sure did.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, like the marriage fell apart was, I have a lot to do with that. My
Yeah.
choice.
But in a way that you feel still was the best route for you to go, or in a way
Well,
that you look back and think maybe you would have done differently?
there's some regret, definitely some regret on choices I made. And I, deep regret, like super duper. But I also, in light of everything that was going on, there was a time, and I think it's kind of funny now, which means I've healed.
Yeah.
I can tell you these two things. We were going through counseling at the church, and a trained counselor. The trained counselor he didn't like. So like, okay, let's go to one that you like. So we went to these people. We're going through the love languages, which mine was touch. So I go to sit on the couch, and he knew it. Like, okay, your love language is touch, and yours is acts of service. So I go to sit on the couch. He's like, "Can you move over?" I'm like, "Sure." So I move closer. He goes, "No, I meant the other way." Like,
Oh,
who does that? But
yeah.
it's kind of funny now, but it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, I made dinner for him one time because I'm like, what acts of service? Make his favorite meal. Well, that day he decided to go on a diet. He wouldn't eat my meal. Like, and the next day he said, he wrote a note. So this is one of the best meals I've had in a long time. And it was Taco Bell.
Oh, wow.
I think he was listening to Rush Limbaugh too much. I don't know.
Well, I'm wondering, do you think maybe he wanted out as well, but he didn't
Yeah,
want it to be his fault, so he had to make you leave?
you're insightful. That's a very, very strong theory I have, and I won't
Yeah.
go into the rest of
Right.
it. But yeah.
It's just I have a strong suspicion that when people are very strictly evangelical and they don't believe in divorce, they don't necessarily not believe in their spouse leaving them, right? And so in the church, if your spouse leaves you, you have the opportunity to be the hero. But if you leave your spouse, you're the sinner. And so it's a lot easier to drive the sinner to leave you than to be the one who finally, cuts the cord.
Yes. Well, if I could go into the, I mentioned before we started going on air, um, I live in Ohio, and it recently was passed. I don't know when this is going to air, but the pro-choice, how do you say that correctly? What happened?
So if I read correctly, they repealed the ban on abortions.
Correct.
They're basically a pro-choice state now where you can get an abortion if you need one.
Yeah.
Or they at least repealed the ban.
Yes. So I actually started to write my story, and I might put it on TikTok. I don't know yet. Of growing up Catholic, my mom was pro-life. My aunt was pro-life. My mom was just pro-life for her. Like, she didn't publicize it. My aunt
Mm.
put slideshows up and showed the babies and gross. Like, but I was like just sitting there watching as a 10, 13-year-old, 10 to 30, what's Aunt Benny doing? But when I got married, we had to make a decision about birth control. And for 6 months of our marriage, and we did, it's called the Navigators. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I've heard of it. Mhm.
Yeah, they're nicknamed the Never Daters.
The Never Daters. That's
And
hilarious.
we did that to a T. We did not date. We were friends looking at marriage, which was super,
Courting.
super weird. Yes. I didn't, like, every week I'd sit down and go, what are we doing again? But anyway, we ended up married. Um, so 6 months in, I'm using this birth control. And my friend Julie's like, what are you doing, Joanne? I'm not healthy. She was a health nut. And sorry, don't mean to offend health. I eat pretty healthy.
Yeah.
But she also said it was religiously wrong. And she's brought up that maybe it caused abortions. And I'm like, what? And so my husband and I studied it, and he kept bringing me article after article after article about how it aborts. And I'm like, I can't abort a baby. I can't do that.
I don't know if you've researched since then, but if it makes you feel any better, birth control does not abort babies. We know this now to be 100% true. There is no abortion of children whatsoever. No abortion of fertilized eggs even involved in birth control. That is a whole separate set of medication that you cannot just get as birth control. So if that makes you feel any better.
So we looked at what's called couple to couple league.
What is that?
It's by the Catholic Church, and they have classes, and you use a basal thermometer, which means you check yourself rectally, not rectally, but anyway, never mind. You check a basal thermometer, and you watch your temperature, and you can regulate when you do the thing. I'm calling it the thing.
Yeah, like ovulation, basically.
Well, yeah, when you have sex, I'm gonna call it the thing. You do the thing when you're not ovulating. So we followed it pretty well. We knew we wanted to have 5 kids, but we had 3.5. I'm like, I was overwhelmed. I was tired. There was some body shaming that occurred. I won't go into that too much, but like, I can't lose weight and nurse a baby, and this birth control thing works. I read the book and say, it says if you go off of nursing, I'd read the rules, and we got to follow the rules because I can't do this again right now. So,
and these were rules from the church. The church was telling you?
No, from the couple to couple league.
Oh, got it. Okay.
My old Catholic upbringing work here. But I had friends that were doing the same thing. They had like 8, 10, 9, 12 kids, like a lot of kids. I was homeschooling my kids too, which is Bill Gothard stuff too. So I was just doing all the, like I said, I did home birth. I didn't do home birth, but almost. Home birth, homemade bread, homemade skirts, the whole 10 yards. I was like top dog, homeschool mom. And so anyway, we had like a 6.5 year gap, and I don't remember how we managed it. We followed the rules quite to a T. It really hurt the marriage. It did. It hurt the marriage. Like, if I look back,
having children or not having children,
not having sex.
Oh, yes.
Thing.
Yeah. So you had 6 years where you didn't.
Not much. Like,
wow.
To a T. Like, to a T.
Wow. Yeah. So they were saying the action is only for reproduction and not for pleasure. Was that kind of their thing?
No, they would just, if you don't want to get pregnant, you can go the first, I'm going to try to remember, the first 6 days you can go. And then there's like a 14-day gap. And then you got like 10 days. You had like 10 days at the end of the cycle. So that's the trick. Like, is it 14 days? And the variability comes in the middle. But what I found out later is that it's not natural at all for me. In women, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, those of you who don't want to do birth control. But anyway, I'm going to get to that in a minute. So we had the 6 year gap, and then I like, okay, I can do this again. I had my energy back, and I was depressed. I was overwhelmed, and I was like, no, I can't do it, So then we had another child. I said, 4 is fun. I like 4.
Yeah.
We had 5. I'm like, 5 is fine, which meant I'm done. And that's when I started to find my voice.
Good.
And I'm still pro-life for me. Like, yeah. What I didn't know back then, what I think the Trumpism, if I can call it that, has helped me to see is that that we've politicized a very personal issue.
Yes.
Like, it's, I'm a Christian, I'm pro-life for me, but I know so many pro-life women who aborted.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
Yep.
say, but
No, but it's true. But it's true.
I'm
It's
pro-life because I'm pro-life for me. Like, I've proved it with my life. I feel some regret because I kind of abandoned my girls about it. Like, I don't
yeah.
know if girls will listen to this. Maybe they will, but I don't judge them for their choices. It was such a burdensome choices that we made. Like, it was our choice. Like, I take my 51% of the blame for it. He takes his
Yeah.
51. We're good,
Yeah.
but my girls were like, what should we do about birth control? I was like, la, 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 I don't know. And I told them
Yeah.
my story and just what I told you. And I
Yeah.
didn't help them. So, they think that I'm pro-choice. And I'm like, I am pro-choice for me. And I would say it's none of my business what you do. So politically, that makes me pro-choice, I guess,
Yeah.
which I don't like.
Yeah.
I just, it's not my business. That's
Yeah.
all.
No, that 100%. Like, so much of the things that we are voting on and like forming political opinions about are none of our business. Like,
Exactly.
it's not my business what you're doing. It's not your business what I'm doing. And I'm just shocked at how much of stuff that is not my business I'm being asked to vote about. Like, I am not gay. Why do I get to have an opinion on gay marriage? Like,
Mm,
why does that have anything to do with me? Right? Like, if somebody decides that they want to do something with their own body, why do I get an opinion on that? It's just wild to me that we're politicizing so many things that are so personal
I
to
know.
each person. It's just like, I can't even imagine if people got to vote against my right to get married. That would be devastating. And I'm like, you're not even in my marriage. Why do you care so much? I'm not asking
Well,
you to
and
pay for it.
I will speak to that a little bit as a former. I still am attending a evangelical Christian
Yeah.
church.
Mhm.
Very than the one that they don't shame women. Um,
Good.
there's a woman pastor. Um,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, and it's
That's
Pentecostal.
really cool.
Yeah, so I'm attending a church, and I'm really hearing, from my Christian point of view, I'm hearing the voice of God. Like, I'm not hearing voices. God speaks to me through the
Yeah.
church and through the pastors, which
Yeah.
used before, but um, so I forget where I was going with that.
Oh, we were just talking about minding our own business.
Oh yeah,
And
in their defense, the belief system is we love you and we believe it's a sin, like and I've actually listened to a lot of um, online pastors, like pastors that talk about what the verses I was taught about the LGBTQ community. Like, no, it's about abuse. It's about abuse of power. It's about the abuse of
right.
position. It's abuse. Like, it's not LGBTQ. So,
Right.
there's a lot. I actually may go to seminary to study because
Good.
I'm actually not only am I tenacious, I like to learn. I love to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of
I think
that.
education is the key to freedom, you
Amen.
know?
Amen.
Absolutely. 100%. So then you decided when you were going through like your family planning process, why was 5 such an important number? Like, why was that the number you both knew that you wanted? Um
He said he said two. I thought, no, did he say two? I don't remember who started. I liked even numbers. I said two. He said that's not enough. He said three. I'm like, four. Three's not even. He said five. And I'm like, I'm not going higher than that. Like, it just
I'm not outbidding him. We're staying right there.
yep. My mom
That's
had eight.
that is a lot
Yeah,
of children.
8 children. Yeah, she survived.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
life of sorrow though. She was like, her children left the Catholic Church, and she lived a life of sorrow. She had some abuses from her past that she never told me about. My aunt told me about. Like, holy crap! Well,
Yeah.
I did not know. My mom never told me.
Yeah.
She might have told others, but and I don't. It wasn't through the church, so.
Right. Well, that's good too. And I think a lot of that sort of thing flourishes because so many people are shamed into not talking about it. And
Mhm.
so what you don't realize is, unfortunately, this has happened to such a vast array of people. And maybe she would have known that had she decided to share her story. But because of shame and things like stereotypes and your, back then, especially your public persona and the public's opinion of you was so important that you kept that stuff to yourself, not realizing that so many people would have had such similar experience as you, but nobody's talking about it.
Right. Well, I did have, after the divorce, I lived a, I may say it the Christian way. I lived a life of sin,
Yeah.
which just means I did the thing with people that I wasn't married to. And I recently, in the last 2 months, I'm choosing a life of celibacy. Like, it's just, that's what like, I had to. So it relates to the birth control. So once we had the fifth kid, I'm like, 5 is fine. And it took 2 years for him to agree with me. And
Wow.
yes, 2 years of much more severe celibacy. Like, it was a lot of like, nope, not, can't touch me. Nope.
Yeah.
Like, I was not nice. Like, Christians would say, you need to meet the needs of your husband.
No, and I would say you were being perfectly nice. Your boundaries weren't being respected.
Well, yeah, I'm telling you the Christian way, but you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I'm kind of I ride the fence a lot. Like, was born in '63, which is kind of a cusper year. I'm not
Mm.
I'm not generation whatever. I'm between generations, and I see both sides of everything. And I recently, like, just accept that's who you are. Like, you're right. Like, I ride the fence. So,
Yeah.
but it makes for loneliness because no, like, the LGBTQ community doesn't want much to do with me because I'm a Christian and I know what my people are doing to them, and I'm so sorry. And I really am. It really aches my soul that I used to be one of them.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing though with TikTok and with your social media presence is really good for showing young people and members of the LGBTQ community and people like me who identify as atheist. I think you're doing a really great job of saying not all of us are like that. There are people out here. You even introduced yourself like that. You're like, I'm the wokest one you'll ever meet. I'm Christian, but I am woke, and whether you like it or not. And so I think very similar to what we were talking about how shame keeping people quiet. I think a lot of people your age probably think young people don't want to hear from me, so they don't say anything. And now all of you are staying quiet when what we could really use is all of your voices joining us and saying you agree with us too. Like, we're all fighting for the same things. You're a Christian, I'm an atheist, but I'm willing to bet so much of what we believe is so similar in terms of how to treat people, what we want to vote for in this country, things that we want future generations to have access to. I think we'd have a lot in common. And
Yes.
I think the fear of, and the bona fide fear, like you are genuine in being afraid of people not wanting to hear your opinion, because I know that is a narrative that is said out loud quite often, especially in the media. But I think by putting your voice out on places like TikTok, you're showing people my age and younger, it's like, no, we're here. We want these things too. We want people to feel included and welcome and loved, and we're Christians as well.
And I think the message I would say to the younger generation, a couple things. We're listening. Like, moms are listening.
Mm.
I have two daughters that say they're bi. I never saw it. Like, and when I asked, I wish they'd answer me. Like, when did you first know you're bi? In my generation, we just called that promiscuous. Like, and I'm sorry that offends, but
No, that's
and then one says she's poly, and like, I at that point I'm like, la la la. I don't want to know your sex life. Like, we don't like talking about it much. I mean, I'm talking more freely than a lot. But the thing I'd say to younger generation is to respect that a lot of people just don't like talking about it. It's not that we don't. Well, that's not true, because I know I want to talk someday to my people, which means my evangelical Christian women, white privileged friends, and say, you know what we're doing to Black people? Do you know we are doing to the LG? We're killing them, and I really am sorry. And I think there's a lot more people like me, and we're alone. We're caught between, most people over 50 live old school life thinking, but
yeah.
it took me hearing my daughters. They said I heard them. One daughter said I called her a slut. Like, I don't remember calling her that, but it was probably during the time I was feeling like a slut, because I was making choices that felt slutty to me, you know.
Yeah.
She has a podcast now called Slut Nation, if you ever want to listen to it. I
I've
know.
heard it.
You have?
I have. That's your daughter?
That's my daughter.
That's cool.
Might hear about me. I haven't listened to all of them, but
I'm going to write that down and go
yeah,
back because I would have been a while ago, but that's cool.
yeah, she's a great, all my kids are great humans. But, you know, there's been, since Trumpism happened, and actually I would say since George Floyd passed, no, I got to correct myself, since George Floyd was brutally murdered.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, brutally murdered. My life is turned upside down, and it's like, but it's good. Like I'm alone a lot, but I'm rebranding myself. I'm trying to regroup. But that same time period, there was a lot of stuff that was going on in my life, and some other things that are more personal I won't go into. Right now, my kids pretty much don't talk to me, and you know, where it's the LGBTQ, I've tried to, like, I'm so sorry, you know, and I am, but you know, I got three of the four are on the LGBTQ spectrum, and one of them told me I am too. Like, what?
Wow.
They said I'm A, and I'm like, what do you mean? So and I'm curious what you think. My studies concluded that I'm just a normal evangelical Christian woman, which means the A is like you're not sexually attracted. I just don't googa.
Oh, does she mean like asexual?
Yeah, asexual.
Got it.
I never, I that's not true. Recently, I have like tried to like be attracted. Like I've tried to be attracted, and
I think I don't think there's always a label for what people are feeling. I think there's a close category. I think kind of like how you said earlier, you're like, I guess politically that makes me pro-choice, but I don't even know. Like, I don't even like that label. I think sometimes in order to describe it to somebody, we have to come up with the closest thing we can. You know, that's what a lot of agnostics say. They're like, I'm not agnostic, but I feel like I have to say that because I'm not an atheist, but I'm not a Christian. And so you are the only person I think who truly knows where you fall on any of these lines. And it's up to you if you want to even find out. You know, some of us are just like, I like what I like, but I can tell you that trying to force yourself to be attracted to somebody is probably going to dry up that river so fast.
well, and I'm the thing I know is I have to get to know somebody, and then I fall in love quickly and easily on that 16 personality tests. I'm a campaigner. It's very, very unique, and we fall in love hard and fast, and we get hurt a lot, and I've been hurt. I follow that to a T, but I've never fallen in love with a woman. You know, it was, you know, I just, how much is choice? How much I'm too old for that. Like I'm just too old for that. So my daughter respects that, you know. And I respect where she stands on her life. I don't understand, and I'd love to ask her more questions. And I've asked a lot of people back during the COVID. A lot of people were wearing their hair rainbow color. I'm like, can I talk to you? And I'd go up to them and I'd say, my daughter won't talk to me right now. And I told them how we sparred over. I said, what's your pronoun? And their shoulders would relax. Like, you're an old lady. They didn't say that, but you know, you're old and you ask me my pronoun. Like, and I want to say to people my age, it doesn't hurt to ask. Like, get off your bandwagon and just be. Everybody wants respect. Young people, I want to be respected. You know, and I think the deconstruction movement. At one point, I got super, super depressed because I had all these ladies, and I'm going to use my camera a little bit. Like, it just felt like it's your fault. It's your fault because you're that mom that homeschooled. That, you know, I did spank my children, especially the older three. You know, I did it James Dobson's way. I don't know if you know who that is.
I know the name.
Yep. Well, it was once we used a spoon. And we did one swat for 1 year old, two swats for and it was a swat, you know. And if I ever got angry, I would bring my husband in. He would finish, you know, like, I can't do this. I'm too angry. Like, I was like, I can't believe they did this to me, you know. and I felt, I like to be respected. And I think that's what LGBTQ people are saying. That's what Black people are. We all want respect. And I think Trumpism is like destroying any
Yes.
semblance. So I hope to, my hope going forward is to, I have probably half a dozen friends that are now in the Black community. I don't see them much because everybody's busy, but I don't have any friends that are LGBTQ, and my church friends, they don't
Or
reach out.
maybe you do and you just don't know it.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe, like, maybe because of the places that you happen to meet people, they just aren't as open about it, or maybe they're in denial about it, but
Well,
perhaps.
I would like to. My favorite people on the planet are younger people. Like, I relate. I like the talkativeness. I like the inquiry. I like they explore life and they talk. That's what I miss
Yeah.
that. I miss that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, and I'll say this. I know we just met. I know we've been talking online for a while, but it sounds like you are working really hard to learn and to grow and to change. And
I
I think that's really important because you've told me so many scenarios that you feel guilty about. But I think you should credit yourself for how many of the scenarios you're telling me about that you are changing and you're trying and you're learning and you're growing. I think that's really important. And I think people, you know how you said your love language is touch? A
right.
lot of people, their love language is action. And you can say one thing, but once you do that thing, when you show them that thing, you can say, oh, I support LGBT all day long. But when they see you out there asking people questions, asking people's pronouns, supporting them, not voting against them, I think that is the ticket to no longer feeling guilty about how you used to be and instead trying to, it is what it is. I did what I did. I'm sorry about it. And I wish I hadn't done it that way. But moving forward, this is how I'm going to treat people. This is how I'm going to think. This is how I'm going to act. And it seems like you're really far into your journey. I don't think that journey ever ends.
No, I
Like,
never die. Nope.
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
because even me, I'm a millennial and I said things in my 20s that I look back and I'm like, why on earth did I think that was funny or appropriate or like socially acceptable in any way? I literally cringe almost daily about things that are probably out on the internet too, because that was, the internet was there when I was doing all that stupid stuff.
True.
But yeah, I wonder if the actions you're taking and you being on places like this podcast and saying, I recognize what I used to be like, and I just wish that people would understand I am doing my best. You're not going to be perfect at it. None of us are, but you're doing your best every single day when you wake up to be this newer, woker, more informed, more educated person when it comes to social changes and social norms. And I think you owe yourself a lot more credit for that.
The day that I have one, she used to be a friend on TikTok, um, deconstructionist, and I don't know if I can't remember if she's atheist or not, but we sparred on TikTok, because I'm like, it feels like you're blaming all moms for everything. Like, I did homeschool, but I had a good heart. Like, I had a good heart. Like, I do know I have a good heart. I make choices in keeping with my religion, and I guess I wish is that so wrong? Like,
No.
but it
No.
is, but it isn't. Like, can you forgive me? I guess would really be the thing to say. Can you
Yeah.
forgive your, like, so we sparred and I feel bad but we just parted ways. But is it my fault? You know,
Yeah.
it,
I think
I accept where it is, but can we forgive and can we be friends?
yeah.
I want I want the chance to, like, I don't know enough LGBTQ people to say, how can I help you? Like, the biggest thing I think I want to do seriously is to go back to my home church someday and speak it. I picture myself speaking at a women's retreat and scolding their butt off. Like, I don't know, and that probably won't work, but I just like the pin drop moment where we are the ones who are destroying. And the way I say it, like, Christians are the ones pushing the black people back in the cities and the LGBTQ back in their closet. And that ain't right. That just
Right?
right. And that's kind of the short of it. And I
Yeah.
hope I have the opportunity to tell my Christian friends, we can be Christian. You can say whatever you want, but stop condemning people. Stop. I'm trying really hard not to.
Yeah. And I think sometimes maybe some of the animosity that you see, I'm just guessing, I don't mean to speak for people, is that maybe you represent something that hurt them. So it wasn't you, even though they say it's your fault, it's your fault. What they really mean is, if I could talk to my mom, that's what I would say. If
Yeah.
I still had a relationship with my mom or my aunt or the person, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was somebody at church that you just happened to remind them of,
And
they
that
say it
their
was you.
yeah, and that becomes their journey. And that particular TikTok friend just didn't understand. Either she didn't understand me, or she wasn't in that place of healing. So I
Yeah.
forgive and move on, and I did. I don't like generation, like psychology. They say, you got someone toxic in your life, get rid of them. I'm like, I'm down to nobody.
You're like, I've cut out everybody that I can possibly cut
Well,
out.
they cut me out too, because I was at one point I was toxic, and I'm trying really, really hard not to be toxic.
Yeah.
And on the racial thing, um, I actually have lost 2 jobs. I've resigned from 2 jobs because
Wow.
I consider myself anti-racist.
Yeah.
I'm very white privileged still in my soul. Like,
Right.
I'm trying to shed of it, but I said some things that were inappropriate. I'm still what do they call it? Unintentionally biased, and I probably always will be. And I'm trying to grow, but boy, it's hard.
It's hard, but
It,
please don't give up.
I won't.
Please don't give up. For me, for the people listening, if you give up, we got nobody. If you give up, if you say it's too hard, I'm going to give up, and we look at you and we think, "Oh, but you've come so far, you've changed so much." Then we got nobody left. We got nobody left on our team. You know
Well,
what I mean?
that's what I feel like. Our world is so divided. We're divided, Republican and Democrat. You can't talk to Republicans. We don't talk to each other. I try to engage with Republicans now. They won't engage. And I do study a lot of politics. I watch Midas Touch Network and David Pacman, and
Oh, I love David Pacman.
yes, Midas Touch is incredible. They're attorneys. They're attorneys, and they
I'm gonna write
share.
that down.
Yeah, Midas Touch Network. It's incredible. They share the cases that are going on over and over and over, and I'm kind of addicted. But anyway, I forget where I was going with that.
We were just talking about changing and growing and how you shouldn't give up.
Yeah. Oh, so if people will let me grow, they got to forgive, because I'm going to make mistakes. And if your mom hurt you, I'm not your mom. Maybe our kid was abused. My kids were, to my knowledge, were not abused in the church. But I mean, if they were, I'd be so upset. But because I tried so very hard, like that was my big. I don't want my kids to be abused. Younger people, befriend someone who's trying. If you can't talk to your mother, talk to somebody else's mother, and befriend them, and take them in. If you're LGBTQ, take in an older woman like me, and just let us be your friend. That's and my evangelical friends, like, God calls us to love. That's it. Like, love, not to judge, to love. Period. End of conversation.
And do you ever think that there will be a point where you no longer identify as Christian? Maybe you believe in God, but you don't want the Christian label, or do you think that'll always come with the territory?
I tried that on for size. So after my divorce, I went through, I didn't go to church until December of last year. So it's been
Oh, wow.
November. Yeah. I've spent a year since I've been going back to church. Went to church in Dayton. Beautiful church called Apex. Now I go to Cornerstone. Anyway, I can't not be a Christian. Like, I tried it on for size. I could not ever deny that God exists. It's just not in my system.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I couldn't go to church because I was living in sin. Like I couldn't do it. And I think it sounds weird, but I'm proud of myself for not going to church.
Yeah.
But couldn't live it, you know?
Yeah. I think that's great.
So then I started going back to church. I still wasn't living it, but they convicted me. Like, you know what? Live what you believe and believe what you live. Like, you know, so that's my encouragement to people too. And it's in my neurology. Like my body physically reacted. I kind of went wacko for a while. And the biggest reason I think I was going wacko is because I was trying to live in both sides. Like I was trying to be both. And I can't, there's a song by, it's called Discombobulated. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's
No.
Discombobulated. I can't sing very well.
I'll write that down. I'll look it up later.
Yeah, it's a very famous rapper. I can't think of his name. But he says left is right, right is left, up is down, you know, and there's a part where he's with a woman, like, yes, no, like that was me. Yes, no, yes, no. And I'm now no until I find my man. That's, you know, and I had to live what I believe. And my girls, you know, that'd be the other thing with the LGBTQ community, the younger generation, like it's in our nerves. Like it caused, like the central nervous system's connected to the brain, and my body was going nutso. Like my central nervous system was reacting to my conflicted belief system. So I had to like straighten it out. And for
I
me,
think that's good.
yeah,
I think it's great that you didn't live hypocrisy. You didn't just take the easy route and silently be a hypocrite.
Oh, I was a vocal hypocrite, but I'm no more.
It sounds like you at least recognize things like people's feelings are valid, how they feel or how they were made to feel, regardless of whether or not you understand it, you understand that they felt that way. Like, for example, your kids, you're like, they said that I hurt them. And even though I don't understand how, I recognize that the way they feel about it, it was real. They weren't making that up. They felt that way. Like, while we wish that we had more information on that and like, how do I not do this again? I would love to know. The idea that you're saying their feelings are valid and you're giving them space to feel those feelings, that's huge. And the same thing with the other people you're talking about. You're like, I'm sorry that I said these things and I did these things. And when you were, say, for example, teaching your kids at home in the way that the church was telling you to, you were doing what you were told was correct by let's face it, that was a cult. Like, that you were being indoctrinated by a cult, and that cult told you this is how you do it correctly, and you were literally just doing what you thought you had to do for your salvation, like for your family to live right. You weren't saying, oh, I'm doing this so that my kids will be isolated and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna make sure they don't wind up on the LGBTQ plus spectrum. You weren't saying any of that. You were saying, I've been told by people that I've been groomed to trust that this is the way that I should operate. And now you're taking a step back and you're saying, that was not the way that I should operate. I have a lot of regrets when it comes to the way I used to live, and I'm actively working to change. And that's huge. I think that's huge. 100%.
If I was a parent again, I would not spank. Like I will not spank my grandkids if I ever get to see them again. Like there's things I would do differently. I believe in God. No one will change that. And I call it a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
Which is it would be a whole podcast. But the idea of changing my belief system, even if there is no God, I gotta believe there's a God. Like that's kind of I got that conclusion at one point. But I personally know there's a God, and that's like, I know that's an opinion, but that's the way I live.
I think that belief, true belief, is when you've been exposed to other ideas. You've read, you've looked around, you've tried it, and at the end of the day, you say, you know what? At the end of the day, that is still what I think and how I feel. And it sounds like you truly believe there's a God. And I believe you when you say that. Even as an atheist, I don't believe in God, but I believe you when you say that you believe there's a God.
And I respect that you don't. Like that.
Yeah.
That is very not, I mean, the term evangelical means you share. Like I gotta share. No, I don't feel convicted to convert you. I
Yeah.
don't. You know,
Yeah.
I need to respect you. Unfortunately, I hate to say this of my church people, but I think I've heard so many deconstructionists, like atheists are atheists in part because we Christians have overlooked the sins of our own people, you know, and like we should be ashamed of ourselves, and I am to the point of, but God forgives us, but yes, but no, like, you know, if I'm supposed to share Jesus, I'm supposed to share him by loving people, by not being addicted to things and not coveting what you have and not buying into all this stuff. Like we're supposed to love people. It's that simple.
Right. Right.
That's kind of the story I got.
Right. Well, and also to me, it says, even though God forgives you, which is a big part of Christianity, if the people you love the most don't forgive you, what value is that on this earth? Right. And
Oh,
so seeking forgiveness and knowledge and understanding and change, even if God already forgives you, because, I was saved, I was baptized, and I like to think that if I died today, even as an atheist, I would go to heaven and God would say, well, you were saved, you were baptized, you were nice to people, you asked people's forgiveness. Um, but I think there's a big difference between saying, well, God forgives me, so I don't need anybody else to forgive me. And if you don't like that, then you're just not a real Christian. Or saying, that's great that God forgives me, but does my neighbor forgive me? Does my friend forgive me? Does my coworker forgive me? Do my children forgive me? That's a whole different category of forgiveness than whether or not your divine God forgives you. And
right.
even if God forgives you, if you feel terrible on this earth without having asked anybody's forgiveness, why not ask their forgiveness too,
I went through a phase where I literally called like 100 people, and like I called or texted. I reached out to everybody that I either thought I hurt, and people thought I was like suicidal. I wasn't, but like, cause like, who does this? But people who are, anyway, I just called and say, thank you for serving me. Thank you for this. But if they hurt me, I'm like, it hurt. And I want to fit. And I said, did I ever hurt you? And it worked for everybody, but the people I love the most. And I'm still working on that one.
Yeah. Did they ever tell you, like, here's something you can do to fix it? Or, like, did they ever give you any kind of, like, ideas? Or do they just need their space, do you think?
I think right now they need their space, and I need to like contemplate. I don't see the world from their view yet. Like the things that I did, I would do again because I thought someone was in danger, and I don't want to go into that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see what I did as wrong, and that's human. That's nothing to do with God. That's between. I mean, you and I, if we spar, if you think I did it wrong and I don't think I did it wrong, like now what do? We
Yeah.
give it time
Yeah.
again, but some people never forgive though, and
Right.
that's heart-wrenching, and that's where I do rely on my faith.
Forgiveness has to be their choice. That's
Right.
the one thing that you can't buy, you can't bribe out of people because that's not true forgiveness. And so, yeah, that's tough. But I
Hmm.
think it's one of those things again, like we can always say, I did not mean to make you feel that way. But at the end of the day, you made somebody feel that way.
Right.
And whether or not we understand it, because that's happened to me a million times. The pandemic was my apology tour for sure.
There you go.
Um, there are still, yeah, there are still times where I'm like, I still don't understand why they're upset, but I understand that they're upset, and I understand that they're upset because of me, and I want to fix that. I may have to ask a million questions. I may need clarification, but I recognize enough to know that they truly feel those feelings. They are not making that up. And when they
Right.
think about me, they think of that pain. And that alone is enough to make me say, what do I have to do to remedy that or at least alleviate it in any way? And then sometimes people have an answer for you and sometimes they block you on Facebook. So, like what are you going to do?
People you love the most, and it gets complicated, and
Yeah.
you're actually challenging me. Like I'm hearing some things you said. We can talk off record,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're challenging me about how I'm handling some situations, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like I'm about the same age as your kids, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Maybe I just think the same way they do.
Yes, and it helps. Like, I don't understand until I talk, and I don't
Yes.
apologize until I understand how I hurt, but I don't understand how I hurt until I talk. So
Right.
it,
Right. It's very cyclical.
it
Very cyclical.
that's where I'm kind of mad at the psychology world, because they're like, just cut them off. Like, how can we ever, like, they're flesh and blood?
Yeah.
You know, how can you never talk to me again? Like, that makes zero. Like, I get it, you need space, but it's like, people who have never had children can't relate to the love you have for your own children. Is just, it's uncomparable. You can't compare it. And to say, well, I'm just never talking to you again, just isn't an option with a mother, at least a good mother.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. And I got things I need to learn. I welcome young people's advice and help, and if they want to TikTok friend me or Facebook friend me.
Well, anybody who's listening to this on any platform, if you've got thoughts, so lucky for you, Jojo, my audience, very nice people. They're very, very nice people, and they're
Good.
they're always looking to help, and they answer questions. Really, they do just a phenomenal job. So,
As are you.
thank
Sydney.
you, thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, but anybody who's listening to this or watching this, please comment below or reach out to me via email. My email is available in the description of any episode. Let us know your thoughts. If you have some thoughts or ideas for JoJo, if you have some, maybe you have some advice from a millennial or Gen Z perspective, or maybe you're the same age as JoJo and you've learned, maybe you're further along in your journey of getting forgiveness from people and you've got some things that you learned, please let us know. Yeah, I would love to pass that along to JoJo.
Thank
And
you.
JoJo, thank you for your time and your story. This has been a lovely conversation.
I've really discovered who I am, and I'm not who I thought I was. I'm who I used. I'm trying to grab the best of what I used to be and get rid of the old stuff, shit, if I can say that, shit.
Yeah,
Okay
go for it.
Yeah, I'm trying. By New Year's, I hope not to swear ever again. It's my goal, personal goal. Yeah,
that's a big goal.
I know, right?
I wish I would swear less. I've been working on that. I really have. I've been working on being classier, as my mom would say. Be classier.
There you go. You're doing well in this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really nice getting to know you, Sydney. Thank you.
It's nice getting to know you as well, especially like vocally, because I know we've been emailing and Facebooking for a little bit, but this was great. And thank you for sharing your time with me.
You're welcome.